The topic today is in consulting sellers on the front end of putting the home on the market. Hello, Scott Pridemore here with Mike Hagee with Pridemore Properties with another episode of Charlotte Real Estate Talk. The topic today is in consulting sellers on the front end of putting the home on the market. What conversations, or what's the topic of the conversation you would have with your seller client around making repairs either before listing or making the necessary preparations for dealing with potential repair items that might result or come through the inspection process? So Mike, can you speak to how you handle that currently and how that works for you?
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Scott. Glad to be here. The seller has a different mindset than the buyer. When a buyer walks through, they're going to notice certain things. They're looking up, they're looking down, they're looking all around, and they're looking for those small little items. It's important, if anything is glaring and obvious throughout, to go through with like the retail buyer in mind. They're going to be looking for, you know, if there's a missing paint splash on the back of the wall, or there's minor repairs that need to be noted. That should be really done in a retail environment and selling, presuming this is what we're referencing here, to go ahead and be covered on the front end. If it is major repairs that we can kind of note, perhaps it's a historical property or there's obvious settlement that has happened in a crawl space, addressing those and talking about what could happen and having some dollars potentially in reserves to address those issues.
First, I'll always ask the question to the seller, are you aware of any issues or repair items that we might need to address before putting the home on the market? And through the disclosure statement, they might determine certain items that might need to be fixed. And in that case, I would have them consult with a contractor to have them fixed in advance of listing the home. Sometimes we have sellers that will not be aware of anything going on with the house, but my advice to many sellers is, no matter how nice the house is, there is more than likely a certain amount of repairs that will need to be addressed through the inspection process, no matter how nice the house is. So it's prudent and smart to allot a certain amount of money on the front end to designate for those unknowns, for items that might be mentioned on the inspection report. I found that it helps the seller reconcile that, and they don't feel as bad about making that expense or incurring that expense, given they've been prepped for what typically takes place in real estate transactions. We could take this conversation and talk about it for several hours. We just wanted to give you a quick hit, and you're welcome to call us if you have any questions around making the necessary preparations for listing your home, or at least getting sound advice so you can prepare given you go through a transaction or you're faced with making repairs. So with that, we thank you for joining us. Mike Hagee, Scott Pridemore with Pridemore Properties. Our contact information will be below this video. Have a good day.